The government may use a subsidy to encourage the production or consumption of a good, and the government does this to ensure that a good that it wants to be produced or consumed, or produced and consumed, is produced in higher numbers so that there is more availability for consumers. So good examples would be the use of solar panels, which have been heavily subsidised by the government for households via producers for a number of years, and vaccinations, etc. So what we need to do is draw a demand and supply diagram to show this. And so we'll draw a normal pair of axes, P and Q. We'll draw a fairly standard demand line. And I should say that all subsidies are flat rate subsidies. There's no distinction between different types. And so there's only one subsidies diagram to learn. And let's imagine that we have our supply line like so. So if this was a free market, we would have the free market equilibrium at PEQE. Now, the key thing about a subsidy is it lowers the cost of production for a firm, because obviously they're getting a sum of money from the government that they can use. So imagine the case of solar panels. If the government wanted more consumers to buy solar panels because it's a renewable form of energy, then it could subsidise firms for producing solar panels. They would produce those solar panels at a lower price, and hopefully the consumer would buy them. So if we are lowering the cost of production for a firm, we would see a shift to the supply to the right. Now that is the subsidy. As I've said, they are flat rate subsidies, and so you will see a parallel shift in your supply line, and you will see the new equilibrium. So you have, as we can see, increased quantity and lowered the price. So the new quantity being produced is Q1. So the key point to remember, the key learning point, is this is where you draw up your subsidy. So the subsidy is the vertical distance between the two lines and the two supply lines here. And so you will have a subsidy that is the vertical distance there between A and B. And then we can draw our nice box here. Let's call that P2, just so that we've got some letters. Now, the government will be paying the whole amount of this subsidy, AB, and we are producing at Q1. And so the whole amount spent by the government is the rectangle AB, P2, P1. Now, you should see from the diagram that the consumer was paying PE and is now paying P1. And so if we're to look at it in terms of the benefit they're getting that distance there between C and B in form of the lower price. So you should also be able to see here from the diagram that the producer is keeping some of that subsidy for themselves. The distance between A and C is the amount that they're keeping themselves. Now, the rationale for that might be that they want to reinvest. If we go back to our solar panel example, it might be that they want to reinvest some of their subsidy money into new technology for the production of solar panels that might make prices even cheaper in the future. And so you can use that to evaluate why the whole subsidy is not being passed on. Clearly, what would change that is the elasticity of the lines that you draw. So what we're able to do then is to look at the incidence, or the benefit, if you like. So this area here is the benefit to the producer, and this area here is the benefit to the consumer. So whereas in a indirect tax diagram you saw consumer over producer, this time we need to turn that on its head, and a good mnemonic is POC, producer over consumer. So subsidies, something used by the government to encourage the production or consumption of a good, tends to be linked to market failure, and where perhaps there's underproduction of a good or no production of a good, such as public and merit goods, it may well be that this is the way that the government addresses that underproduction.